Whether from former players, coaches, or your uncle that peaked in high school, they all say the same thing. But like most football cliches, we're missing a lot of context here. Is the game actually soft? Is it the rules or is it the players? And are the old heads right when they say, what has happened to the game I love? Well, sit back and I'll tell you exactly how the game has changed and why. Hey, like, follow, and subscribe. Don't make me interrupt the video again to tell you. Now, the first thing that the unfamiliar will say is, wait, I thought football was the most physical game in the world. What do you mean it's soft? Well, funny enough, football actually used to look a lot more like this. Bone-crushing, soul-snatching hits used to be commonplace. I'll even go as far to say that was the goal. We celebrated these hits and these players that gave them out back in the day. Hell, we still do. There's a statue of Ray Lewis outside of M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore right now, as we speak. And that's just the late 90s to mid 2000s. That doesn't cover Lawrence Taylor breaking Joe Theismann's leg, Jack Lambert's toothless smile as he decapitates a running back, or the NFL's original headhunter, Dick Butkus. Just tracking from Butkus until today, that's 60 years that the NFL has built this sport and its brand on these pseudo gladiators just taking out their opponents. And the 40 years before that with the soft helmets wasn't much better. So before I get on my soapbox, I want to let it be clear, I do not blame past generations of fans for being resistant to change. This time, football is much bigger than a sport in American culture. It's pretty much a religion. I mean, they took Sundays from Jesus. So when the foundation of something that's so deeply interwoven into American culture seems to be changing, yeah, you're gonna get some pushback. I understand it. But trust me when I say these changes came for a fairly good reason.
Lately, it's been difficult to talk about football without mentioning concussions.
This is gonna get dark, but just rock with me for a second. I'm gonna try to make this quick. The previous eras shown in those clips had no idea how truly damaging concussions were. They definitely didn't have any idea what CTE was. I mean, Dr. Bennett Omalu didn't link it to football players until 2002, as shown in the movie Concussions, starring Will Smith as the aforementioned Dr. Omalu. For those of you who do not know, CTE is an acronym for chronic traumatic encephalopathy, a degenerative brain disorder that happens after repeated head impacts. Symptoms include cognitive impairment, impulse control problems, and self-harming thoughts and behaviors, just to name a few. And if you were to allow me a slight tangent here, and it is not funny and/or humorous at all, nothing about former athletes' brains turning to mush until they inevitably unalive themselves is comical. I don't know how in our modern sports discourse CTE jokes became so popular, but nothing about that is funny. Nothing at all. And the same people making these jokes are the ones sending out the thoughts and prayers when someone ends up getting concussed and carted off a field. Okay, now back to the video. The fans, analysts, and player ignorance towards CTEs was not an accident. It took the NFL another 7 years after Dr. Omalu made the link to finally acknowledge that maybe football isn't so great for the brain, even after he directly presented the evidence to them in 2007. Instead, they went the route that most multi-billion-dollar corporations go, relentlessly attack Dr. Omalu's character, funded their own research to discredit him, and even allegedly trying to get Dr. Omalu deported. But the NFL trying to downplay concussions go even before that. In 1994, during the panel about the future of sports, then NFL Commissioner Paul Tagliabue said the following when it came to concussions. On concussions, I think this is one of those packed journalist issues, frankly, ellipses. There is no increase in concussions. The number is relatively small, ellipses again. The problem is a journalist issue, unquote. Mind you, this is the same year that Cowboys quarterback Troy Aikman's career ended because of concussions, and Bears running back Merrill Hodge's career ended during concussions. And I know he likes to pretend like concussions are a myth and all that now. Brother, we have eyes. We saw what happened. But I don't bring that up to tell you that the NFL and other multi-billion-dollar corporations are evil and will do anything to aggressively suppress anything that affects their bottom line. Hopefully you know that already. But I bring that up to paint a much larger picture. Because when the NFL is faced with the question of why they're making the game softer, they frame it as a player safety issue. Oh, we're just trying to protect the players. Well, that's not true. They're protecting something that starts with a P, but it damn sure ain't the players. Profits. They're protecting profits. Get your mind out of the gutter.
The National Football League promised to compensate former players who developed dementia and other brain diseases linked to concussions.
In 2011, the NFL was sued by over 4,500 players over concussion-related trauma. That case was later settled in 2013 for $765 million, then settled again in 2015, and only 15% of the players in that lawsuit actually ended up getting paid, but that level of corruption is for another video. The relevance of the lawsuit for this video is this. That lawsuit is the catalyst for what we now know as player safety rules and regulations. So again, CTE was linked to football as early as 2002, and it took a decade and $750 million of a lawsuit for the NFL to finally be like, all right, fine, we'll do something about this. So any of them little promo videos you see talking about how much they care about player safeties, it's a farce.
We turn now to several major rule changes in the NFL designed to increase action and keep players safe.
Now, when these health and safety rules did get kicked in, they were expansive and very sudden. But for the most part, we can put them into two categories. Headshots, quarterback safety. We're gonna focus on the headshots for today, but for quarterback safety, it can be summarized very shortly. Quarterbacks are very financially valuable, therefore the corporations are gonna protect them. Cool. Okay, now for headshots. The first thing the league did was establish and then expand something called a defenseless player, which is a concept that sounds absolutely insane to players and fans alike of past eras. But defensive players are defined as, dang, this list is long, just bear with me guys. A receiver trying to catch a pass, a runner already in the grasp of tackles having his forward progress stopped, a player fielding a punter kickoff, a kicker or punter during the kick, a receiver who receives a blindside block, or a player already on the ground. Now, some of those are already in the rulebook, but as far as the actual enforcement of them, yeah. But here is the league is solved silver bullet, right here. Straight from the NFL rulebook, quote, "It is illegal for a runner or tackler to initiate forcible contact by delivering a blow with the top or crown of his helmet against an opponent when both players are clearly outside the tackle box." Now let's rewind and look back at all those big hits from Jacked Up and NFL films. Almost all of them are in violation of those two rules that you just heard. So the hits that generations of fans flocked to this game because of, overnight was gone. And it only proceeded to get worse from that point on. And you know what I say? Good.
A prominent group of researchers have found over 90% of former NFL players have developed CTE.
If the trade we make for less players with CTE is that we don't get to watch receivers get decapitated over the middle anymore, that sounds like a fair deal to me. I greatly spared you as a viewer during the concussion and CTE segment, but if you do even a little bit of research into it, dear God, it is actually horrifying the damage that CTE can cause. And suddenly your team getting a 15-yard penalty doesn't seem so important. But every generation thinks that the generation after them is lazier than them, crazier than them, softer than them, etc., etc., etc. But in the case of football, it is at least attempting to make the game safer. No matter how nefarious their intentions may or may not be, the attempt is being made. And we as fans, when we weigh out our options, we should be able to take that on the chin. As long as it's not coming with the crown or top of their helmet, because that's 15 yards.